Hi there. Welcome to Book Love Book Club for the summertime 2025. Tim, Cindy, and I are here together tonight. We are doing a video podcast style of introduction and talking about books that we introduce the school year with our classes. And we bring you a range of experience from kindergarten through to upper elementary. And what we're going to be looking at is highlighting beginning of the year targets, such as establishing relationships, building students up individually, and building community. And tonight we're going to be focusing on identity. So you're going to be presented a few different books. We're going to chat about them, and they're all going to be focused around creating a sense of identity and helping children connect with their classmates on who they are and what they bring to the class. So we'll kick it off. I'll send it on over. Tim, do you want to start us off tonight?
Sure, I'll start us off. One of the things I like to do, I've taught third and fourth grade, next year teaching second grade. I love to start the year off sometimes with an after recess read aloud of a chapter book. And so I'm always looking for new books for this. And one that has been on my shelf, it's been on my to be read list, and I finally tackled it this spring, is Maybe Marisol Rainey by Erin Entrada Kelly. I hope I'm saying her name right. And this book is just a darling book, but it's this book about this little girl named Marisol and her relationships and how she navigates her relationships at home. Her dad works away, like her parents are married, but her dad works a job where he's gone on an oil rig for weeks at a time, and how sometimes she feels different than the other kids. She navigates some relationships with her friends, and then lurking in the background, figuratively and literally, is this great climbing tree that they have a nickname for and everything in her family, which she has never climbed. And so it's always kind of there, and you can kind of, if you're reading as an adult, you could see like she's going to want to climb that tree, but she's not interested in it. Tree climbing's not her thing. She's good at lots of other things. And so as the story progresses, she finds her footing, and literally then, ultimately in the climax of the end of the story, it's just so well written, so accessible. And I love starting the year with that also, just as a reading teacher, because it's introducing a chapter book that is part of a series, so kids might get interested in it. It's accessible to early chapter book readers in terms of the level at which it's written. I will have readers in second grade who for sure by the end of the year, and some of them at the beginning of the year, will be able to read a book like that independently or with a little support. So I love that, but I also love that message at the beginning of sort of figuring out our place, in the world, feeling different,
Mhm.
fitting in,
Yeah.
finding ourselves. Um, it's a really cute book, and I listened to it on audio, so it's great because my classroom was packed up and my copy was in a box. So, um,
Awesome.
Audio is reading too, Tim.
yes, yes.
Wonderful. Cindy, what book are you bringing to our attention tonight to start off?
So I always start my year with a book called What the Road Said by Cleo Wade. And it's illustrated by Lucy DeMonacourt. I hope I'm saying that right. And I really love this book. It just sort of starts out with a person on a journey and just wondering which way they should go and worried about what if they go the wrong way, what's the right way, um, what happens when they meet different people along the way. So it just really is a nice start that encourages kids to just kind of leap off and start this journey down the road, and who knows what it's going to bring. I know for fifth graders who are getting ready to move on, at least in our building, to a new building in sixth grade next year, this is sort of their last year, and they're starting to hit that point where who am I and what if I do something wrong and what are my challenges. So this just feels like a really nice pairing, a really nice way to start fifth grade. I usually, after we read the book, have the kids do like a little reflection on who they are and what they want to accomplish this year and what the challenges might be. And then I end up taking that reflection out at the end of the year. And we kind of talk about it in an end of the year circle. And I finished the year off with another Cleo Wade book called May You Love and Be Loved. And it just feels like a really nice kind of way to send them off to sixth grade when we're done. So for me, it's kind of like a bookend, and it's just a really enjoyable story that there's no one right way or wrong way. We just are going to persevere through this together. So I really enjoy the book a lot.
I love that. I
I
love
love
how
that
you,
whole bookend idea and
yes.
reflecting back on where you started and where you finished the year. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
The book that I'm bringing in tonight is called Alma and How She Got Her Name. And it's a story about a little girl who has a very long name, Alma Sofia Esperanza Jose Piora Candela. And she's very frustrated. Her name is so long, as you can see here, it doesn't even fit on a page. She has to tag a little piece onto the end. So in her frustration, she goes to her dad and says, like, why is my name so long? Like, what, why? And so dad says, come here, sit down. Let me tell you the story of your name. And he goes through each of her names and tells where it comes from an aunt, from a grandmother, from a grandfather, all these places that they come from. And then at the end, she says, but Alma, where does Alma come from? And he said, well, that is just you. You are the only Alma. And so what this book does is it helps the children in the space, but us as adults too, to recognize the importance of learning children's names right off the bat, first thing, learning the correct pronunciation of the name, and to understand where these names come from. So when we're in wonderfully diverse classrooms, this helps us to be more inclusive and aware of who the children are in our space, the stories they bring to us, connections to their home literacies, all those things come into play. And it also promotes pride and joy in your own name, because I'm sure just about every human being on the planet at one point or another has said, I hate my name. Why on earth was I called this? And so this really helps children to share who they are, where they come from, and to get excited about their names and their families.
I
I
love
love
that.
that.
I love the history of her name too. How like she's a little bit like her identity is woven into her past, but she's
Yes.
also like herself. Like I love that combination of like we are our experiences and our culture and all those other incredible things, but we're also like but we also become ourselves, our unique selves. So I love that combination in that book.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And the artwork is stunning too. It's very
Yeah.
simple charcoal artwork with just little hits of color here and there.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Awesome.
And at the beginning of the year, one of the things I've done since my second year teaching, my first year, I printed everything with everyone's names on it. Um, and my second year, I started having the kids put their names on everything.
Okay.
So including, like they make a name tag that we tape to their book box. They make a name tag that we, and it saves my beginning of the year prep, but it also just like everybody has their own unique flair, and some kids just write their name on it and some kids style it. But at a time of year when we're at the beginning of the year, when we're all like getting to know each other's names,
Yeah.
um, like what a great text. Um, I don't know. We just springboard from wherever, one of the things I think of when I think of that getting to know each other, identity piece, it is sort of like what Cindy hit on. It's who we are, and it's also like who we're becoming.
Yes.
And so, often in the beginning of the year, we're establishing our classroom mission statement or our classroom, ethos or whatever. And I ask the kids, like, what do we want people to say about us? And so as I'm asking them that question, uh, and we've already established like we're gonna, respect each other, and but what do we want them to say about us by the end of the year? Then I want to introduce books that sort of uphold a certain identity, you know,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
the kids will just naturally, It's the power of suggestion. Um, so, as I'm reading maybe Marisol Rainey, I might pair it with this, which hits on some themes we'll talk about in later discussions. But Manji Moves a Mountain by Nancy Chernin, which is based on the true story of a man who, bit by bit, carved a road through two mountains connecting two villages and like changing, a whole little society there. And it does blow kids' minds in terms of genre because it's very written like a picture book, and so kids are like, oh, well, this is made up. And then when you get to the back matter, and they're like, this is the real guy, and this is when he was born and when he died. But so Marisol Rainey climbs that tree in her backyard, but Manji, bit by bit, like he also overcomes something. And so when I say like, hey, we're going to be overcomers, we're going to be kids who persevere, who can struggle,
Yes.
and when the learning feels hard, like we're going to engage. I just love to have those discussions and connect those with experiences at the beginning of the year there in that environment. What about you guys? What does this have you thinking about in the beginning of the year?
So I was also thinking another book that and it's kind of part of a series, a small series of picture books, is Zero by Catherine Otashi.
Yes.
And she has 1 and 2. I don't remember if she went beyond 2, but I love, and again, it's great for any grade level, but I think, again, especially like the upper elementary where kids are feeling like they don't quite fit in, but they want to
Yes.
conform. And so I love, it's the number 0 and like it just doesn't fit into the other digits and it's not part of the community, but how they kind of work together.
Yes.
By the end of the book, and he sees that without him, so many of the other numbers couldn't be formed. And so I love sort of that blending of, who am I and where do I fit in? And
Yeah.
it's just a fun book, and it's got a couple really nice follow-up books that you could read later in the year as well. So that's another one of my favorite books to read at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I love those. We have them in my K1 class. We read them frequently. But you just made me think of another title I really, really like. It's called Where Oliver Fits, and it's by Cale Atkinson.
Mm-hmm.
And Oliver is a puzzle piece. And so they're trying to put all these puzzles together, but he doesn't fit in any of the puzzles that are being assembled. So it talks about how he tries to change himself. Like he changes his color, he tries to change his shape. He's really trying hard to fit in because he believes he doesn't belong. Well, as you go through the story, lo and behold, of course, by the end of the story, he does find his place where he does belong. But all through it talks about how the other puzzle pieces, like when he was trying to fit in, like he sort of got through the social gate, but then they recognized very quickly that he didn't really belong there. So then they kicked him out. So there was a whole lot of like trying, failing, but then he finally found his place. So it helps not just with identity and understanding like who you are and what you bring to a situation or an environment is vital. It's important, but also that sometimes you have to try over and over and deal with that rejection, that not quite fitting in, to build the resilience to continue on until you do find your place. And again, the illustrations are very child friendly. The colors are bright and welcoming, and like the puzzle pieces, some of them are hilarious. Their expressions and things like that. But it's a really good read that I stumbled across by accident one day and read it to the kids, and they loved it and they talked about it a lot. So we revisited it a number of times this year, and it's one that I would definitely start off the beginning of the year, regardless what age group, even in middle or high school, if you had the opportunity.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Zero from what you're describing. I haven't read
Yes.
that one. Now I have to check it out.
Yeah.
This could be an expensive discussion.
I already got my book list going.
I think what I love about thinking about that beginning of the year read aloud is that gathering the kids on the carpet, or sometimes if I'm reading a chapter book, depending on the grade level I'm teaching, maybe they're even just sitting at their desks. and I'm reading a chapter book aloud. Maybe it's an illustrated chapter book. Maybe I have the document camera. I'm showing them the illustrations. But it's like a universal language. Like we're built for story.
Yes.
And so at the beginning of the year, even more so than like my classroom expectations have not been completely laid out. Our routines are not established. We're still figuring each other out. They're testing me, I'm testing them. um, we can gather that carpet is an equalizer. We can gather on that
Isn't it
carpet,
though?
whether it's literal or metaphorical. I can open that book
Yeah.
and everybody knows what they're supposed to do.
Yes.
And not only does everybody sort of know what they're supposed to do, but like entering into a story is a really enjoyable thing to do as a community. And with just a little classroom management, a lot of really important stuff can happen there in the elementary classroom or maybe any classroom.
I was gonna say, like, read aloud is one of my non-negotiables. Like, we
Yeah.
read a book a day. I have the bulletin board in the hallway with our mystery readers and stuff, and like, I don't care. It's one thing that I don't think is leveraged enough in middle school and high school. Like,
Yeah.
even for adults. Like, quite honestly, even at staff meetings, like you can use the power of story in such incredible ways, and I don't think we leverage it enough because we tend to think, oh, picture books are for the little kids, and they're not. Like,
I love that you said that about staff meetings and that. I teach a course at our local university with pre-service teachers, and it's an introduction to elementary teaching. That and every week when we meet, I start up the class by doing a read aloud. Read aloud, and the first week they seem a little bit surprised by
yeah,
it. But by the second week in their journal reflections, they're talking about these books, and then they start sharing about books and they connect to them and how, like that sounds like my story, or I remember when I felt like, so it's really powerful what you were saying, Cindy, about that power of storytelling and being read to. There's something very
yeah,
intimate and comforting and like sort of like heartwarming when somebody reads you a story, even if it's just a segment of a story. It just takes you back to that moment in time, maybe when you fell in love with books, or
yeah,
that you curled up on Nana's lap, or curled up with your cousins like under the blanket tent with a flashlight reading after you were supposed to be in bed. There's just something very warming about it.
yeah,
And as I'm saying these words, it makes me think that roots
yeah,
right back into our identity and who we are, not just
yeah.
as students, but as readers and connectors and all of that.
And just even when I think of some of our kids who may not have the luxury of those experiences, we can give
Yes.
them
Yeah.
that joy in our classroom, and that, like Tim said, that either that literal or metaphorical carpet where we draw them in. And so even for our kids who have never had that experience, we can give them that experience in our classroom, and what a powerful thing that is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I'm really looking forward to our discussions the rest of this month.
Yes.
Yeah,
If you're watching this in the book club, we're looking forward to interacting with you or seeing you interact with each other in the comments here, or hopefully you got some good suggestions for your to be read list. So stay tuned that way. But this has been
Yeah.
fun, and we've got a couple more chats we're going to have. So thanks so
Yay.
much.
Wonderful.
Hey,
Awesome.
thanks.
Thanks so much, Tim and Cindy.
Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.